Officials across the U.S. commemorated the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II this week, signifying the Allied victory over the Axis powers. One author is hoping to educate children about the significance of the war with his new book called Bumble Humblestone and the Secret Cargo. Here to talk about his book further is the author himself, Sam de Santo. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Stephanie. How are you? It's really great to be here. What an honor. Thank you.
Great to be with you. Now, World War II is very complex in the sense that there were so many events leading up to what became known as Nazi Germany and the Axis powers, and so many grim details throughout that war as the Allied and Axis powers battled it out. What made you want to come up with a children's book based on that war?
Well, it's interesting. I've always been really fascinated with that period of time, right? And it was, to me, it was a time, it wasn't that far away, wasn't that long ago, and technology hadn't taken over the world yet. So I think the stakes were very high, and we'd be living in a very different world had things gone differently. So, and you had mentioned that this week was the anniversary of the end of the war, and that's very true. And I actually wanted to read something to you because it was 2014 in June at the 70th anniversary of D-Day. Okay, that the American Council of Trustees and Alumni did a survey and this is what they found: that a quarter of those surveyed didn't know D-Day occurred on World War II, that less than half knew that it was that FDR was the president at the time, and that when asked where the beaches of Normandy were, 15% replied Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and not France. So to me, that was a tremendous disconnect, and I just thought, you know what, it'd be good to write a book about this.
And I think World War II, it's just so fascinating to see all the events that led up to it and the war itself. There's so many layers underneath it. I find it fascinating as well. You describe your book as a historical fiction action-adventure novel for kids ages 9 to 12, but the elements within the novel are factual. Tell us more about the plot.
Well, it's a mouse adventure, right? So what I have is, I thought it would be compelling to take this tiny character, and drop him into a world of epic scope and action, because that juxtaposition is very interesting. So he works at an air transport command base, and he's in charge of the tire tread task force, which means they clean the tire treads on all the planes that come and go out of the base. The British were put in charge of figuring out a way for the French resistance to communicate. And they come up with this device, and they're going to send it from this base, right? But the mouse, since he's small, he sees things other people can't see. So he realizes there's a saboteur at the base. And so the top secret mission is going to be in danger. So he stows aboard the flight and to safeguard the cargo's to safeguard the cargo. So he makes this crucial decision to step out of his safety zone, out of his normal surroundings, out into the big world. And he has this life-changing adventure.
And I know within your book, there's mentions of Winston Churchill, who, of course, he was a former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And then that you also mentioned about Operation Mercury. And you also talk about how the material in your book was recently declassified. How were you able to incorporate that into a children's book, but also keep their attention?
Well, it's interesting. Kids' attention spans are fairly short. I think all of our attention spans are fairly short these days, right? So the planning and the writing of the book had to be, I had to keep that in mind. And so the way I was able to do that was to keep the chapters very short. And as the chapters are short, the more chapters kids actually read, right, the further along in the book they get, the more encouraged they get. And as they get encouraged, they get engaged, and they finish all the way through. So, and I also illustrated it, which is something that I hope also keeps them interested and hopefully makes it more compelling. So when they get to the end of the book, and this is what you were mentioning, they'll learn what was real and what was historically correct.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.